Today is February 4th, 2026, and we are still feeling the colder temperatures over the Great Lakes. We're still going to be riding a colder pattern into this weekend. We will see a bit of a warm-up leading up to Friday before we have two very cold days coming up in the Great Lakes region, all the way down to the state of Florida, Alabama, and that whole region. We're going to go over our precipitation for the next 48 hours, as well as temperature anomalies, as well as what we can expect when it comes to what next week looks like. So we're going to take a look at the warming trends coming up in the next week or two. It is big news for those of you who have been waiting for warmer weather to come. It looks like that there is hope in the future. So follow me as we go through today's weather. So we're going to start here with our temperature anomaly right now. We do see that Great Lakes region again. It's just surrounded by colder weather right now, and it seems to be blocked. There's nowhere for it to go. And we do see a battle occurring on the western half of Canada and the United States. You can see that push to the right, but it seems like that cold air just has nowhere to go, so it is pushing back a little bit. We will see a slight warm up in the Great Lakes, southern Ontario region leading up to Friday, but by Saturday, we are talking about another Arctic blast that is going to be super cold, and this one's going to push all the way down into the Florida region again before we have some give into next week. Looking at the precipitation radar right now in North America, it is fairly quiet still. We do have that rain off the west coast of Canada on Vancouver Island and into other portions of BC. And we still have that line of showers that has been pushing off into the Atlantic and into the Gulf Coast. And we are looking out for Friday. We do see a bit of a wintry storm pushing from northwestern Ontario past Lake Superior down into southern regions of Ontario, riding that ridge that's been building up on the west coast. And you can see how high up that's pushing some of these temperatures into British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. We are seeing temperatures that are going to be hitting into the 40s and 50s, which is huge. And in Canada, that would be into the double digits. Some parts of these provinces are getting into some warmer temperatures, which is nice for them. But if you're on the East Coast, you are kind of stuck in that cold freezing level. We will see, like I said, a bit of a warm up with the sun. It feels nice. But on Saturday and Sunday this coming weekend, it is going to dip down pretty hard. As far as actual temperatures go, let's take a look at what North America actually looks like. Clearly in northern Canada, you're going to have freezing temperatures into the negative 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is absolutely freezing. This is not out of the ordinary for those places because they're so close up to that Arctic Circle. But as we get into the further south we go, you can see on the western half of the United States, tons of regions above zero, which is nice. A little bit of a warm shot for them. And like I said, in British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, the temperatures are getting pushed into the 40s and 50s in the southern portions of those provinces. But we still see that giant jet stream push all the way down into portions of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, and come all the way up the East Coast. So it's still very, very cold in those regions, but we will see a bit of a pushback to try and get some of those, at least southern states, into the 50s and 60s. There is a warm up on the way, and we will go over that. As far as our temperature anomalies go, like I said, Canada is a very cold place in the winter. All of those northern provinces and territories, like the further northern portions of those provinces and the three territories, they are very cold. And even when this graph here or this map does show that we're above average, because it is going to show Canada is mostly above average, it is still freezing cold because their average temperatures are so cold that even if it's predicted to be over, it's still well under zero. We still see the western half of the United States being well above average temperatures, and that locked in Arctic air is still pushing in on the eastern coast. And we have to get through this week. Here are some of the actual temperatures that we're experiencing. Like I say, you could see the southern portions. I think even Alberta gets very close to 60 degrees, which is almost 15 degrees Celsius. And for February, that is lovely. That is a beautiful place to be if you love summer, and it's only February. But we still see the eastern portion of the United States, gridlocked into that polar Arctic frigid cold air. And these numbers are still diving down into the 40s down in Florida. So it's still having quite an impact. There is a pushback. We do see it through Texas, up the central portion of the United States. There are some warmer areas, and that jet stream, like I said, just dives all the way down into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and portions of Florida, up the East Coast, from South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania. Very cold temperatures still. Now, the good news is, and we can just take a look at the wind chills really quickly here. It pretty much follows the temperatures, just a few degrees colder on top of what it already is. Coming up, here's our 6 to 10 day temperature probability outlook. So in the next 10 days or so, this is how we're looking. This has changed from a lot from a few days ago. This is telling us that the central portion of the United States, some spots on the west, some spots on the east, are going to be experiencing warmer weather, which gives us hope. There is a sign. There's lots of signs pointing to the fact that we are going to be over average. Few spots on the East Coast will be under, but there's no dark blue areas on this map. And if you want just the plain English of it, for the most part, 70% of the country is going to be above average. And the even better news is that in about 2 weeks' time, we are looking to see about 2/3 or even more, 75% of the country, especially on the East Coast, will be well above average. And there's a high percentage of probability to say so. So that's the good news. Our precipitation is looking like, with a warm-up, you're probably going to have more rain or snow, because that's just how the jet streams work. When you have two air fronts colliding, you do have a little bit more action. Warmer weather usually signals to more active weather patterns. And this points to the exact same thing, just pushing east as the eastern half of the country will eventually warm up in the next 8 to 14 days. Looking ahead for the next week or so, we see that snow pattern emerge from northwestern Ontario and almost rides down that jet stream. On the Friday this week, we're probably going to see about 5 to 7 centimeters of snow overnight Thursday into Friday. We do have that rain pattern off the coast of Florida. Vancouver continues to be hit with that rain and wintry mix, but still for the overall portion of this map here, it is still fairly quiet. We don't have any significant storms to really report about, so that's why today's weather report's going to be fairly quick. You can just see that freeze line, the huge difference from the west coast to the east of how much that ridge actually pushes far to the north and then dives all the way down the east coast. And this temperature anomaly map is the perfect sign and perfect evidence to show that. And if you just saw that on the map there around the 18th or so, we do see that it's like a battle. We see the warm side and we see the cold side. The warm side finally wins the battle and is able to warm up that Great Lakes region because they have been so cold for so long. So this will be of great relief. But we do see after this week, on Friday, another Arctic blast that's going to last only 2 days, but it is going to be very cold. If you're in southern Ontario, I think you're going to see a high of about negative 14 degrees Celsius, which is right around 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is going to be very, very frigid this coming weekend, but it looks to be around the 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit mark next week. If you're on the western half of the United States, the future's still looking good. And we do see in about a week's time, some warmer temperatures actually take over on the eastern portion. But give it time, because this pattern is going to flip. It is going to be a nice break for the East Coast, who has just been surrounded by colder weather for the past few weeks. Looking at some of the actual temperatures over the next few weeks, this is what we can expect. The western half, like I said, BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, you will see some numbers push up into the 50 degrees, right around that mark. And we do see a push from the southern central states such as Texas all the way up. We can see that there are some warm shots. It's just a battle that seems to be taking place though on that east coast, because you see a push but it then retreats over and over again. The battle will be won in time. We just have to be patient. That Great Lakes region will reach over 0, and when it does, I think it's going to feel Very warm compared to how it's been lately. And here's just the last map looking at some of the wind chills that will be expected. Now, the good news is we're actually seeing some humidex values down in Texas, the Gulf Coast. We're seeing a lot of them actually throughout the southern states. So maybe that's our first real sign of spring, that we are starting to see some of that warm, moist air slowly push and retreat back and push north into the United States, which hopefully can make its way up into Canada at some point. It is early February, but the good news is that the sun is feeling much stronger than it did a month ago, and we do see a pattern flip that emerges from the west coast to the east coast at some point in the next week or so. So this is the Border City Kids. I am Brian, the host. Please hit the like button, subscribe button, leave a comment if you would like. I'd appreciate you being here. I'd take subscribers as much as we can. I like doing the weather for you guys. If you have any questions, if you're in Canada, I'd love to be able to answer that. If you have any questions on me reporting specifically in certain places in Canada, please let me know, and I can definitely get to you on the next weather forecast that we do. There isn't too much in the way of active weather coming up, but if there are any major storms that come up, I will be back as soon as I can to do that. If not, you'll see my weather forecast tomorrow. I'll be here every day. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Brian. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.